Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Esther Show. Today I'm so excited to be joined by Zuby, rapper, author, and Oxford graduate. You might remember him for breaking the British women's deadlift record quite comfortably last year, and more recently for getting suspended on Twitter for saying "okay, dude," which, is it's telling in and of itself. Thank you so much for joining me, Zuby.
That's okay, Esther. Happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. So today I think I want to focus a little bit more on your music because, before you came into the spotlight primarily for obviously the stuff on Twitter, you've been working in music for quite a long time. I wanted to discuss a bit more about how you got into music. Why music? Because you went to Oxford and you studied something completely different.
Yeah, sure. So I've always been creative. When I was younger, I actually wanted to be a professional cartoonist when I got older. So yeah. So initially my creativity came out through drawing and art and making cartoons, a little bit of painting, everything like that. I did play piano when I was a child. I also played trombone in the school band for a little while. So I was doing some music, but I wasn't really into music. I wasn't a music fan. I wasn't listening to it, etc. I became a music fan more when I was around maybe 12 years old or so. By that time, I'd gone to the UK for a boarding school. So I was still living in Saudi Arabia at the time, but back and forth between the two countries. So fell in love with hip hop really in my teen years, became a big fan of a lot of different artists. And then when I was in university, so in my first year at Oxford, I was actually traveling to Nigeria in one of the breaks. And I had a layover. I was flying with Air France. I had a layover in Paris. And I was by myself. I was kind of stuck in the airport alone for about not quite 24 hours, but almost a whole day. And I didn't have much with me except my MP3 player, a notepad, and a pen or a pencil. And I just started writing down some lyrics. I was just listening to beats. I just started writing lyrics, and it's something that came fairly natural to me. So I kept on doing it during that whole period. Actually, I was in Nigeria for several weeks, and I was just writing lyrics and recording stuff into my phone, just using the sort of voice notes application.
Oh the OG recorder.
Exactly. So that's how it all started. Then when I came back to the UK and I was back in university, one of my friends, Chris, actually in his dorm room had some recording equipment. So I used to go in there and we would just record. I'd get beats off the internet, record songs. And I was getting a lot of positive feedback from people. I'd send it out to my friends, my family, let people hear what I was doing. And that's how it all started initially.
Okay. I find that really interesting that you just get beats off the internet and kind of, practice your flow over it. I'm not sure if you've seen a video of Snoop Dogg on YouTube recently. He's just talking about like current rappers like da 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 da, and it's like that's one of the songs from Cinderella, which I thought was hilarious. But how do you practice, I guess, your flow? How do you intermix different rhythms and beats?
So I normally come up with a flow before I come up with the words. So if I get sent a beat, or if I've decided I'm going to make a song with a certain beat or instrumental, I will just listen to it in my headphones or on speakers, and I'll just kind of mumble something. I'll do almost what you were just doing, right? Yeah. I will decide, okay, how am I going to rap? How do I want it to sound? Is it going to be, is it going to be a double time flow? Is it going to be sort of more old school flow? What kind of energy is it going to have? So I do kind of just like hum/mumble stuff to myself to come up with the flow. And then I put the words to that after, once I've decided how I want my flow and delivery to be.
Okay. And I mean, obviously with the themes that you explore in a lot of your music, they're quite different. I mean, current mumble rappers and just, I guess, OG rappers in general, they tend to talk about more profane topics. You Sure. kind of steer clear of that. I haven't seen any sort of scantily clad women. You don't really swear. A lot of the, I'm sure your girlfriend is very proud of that, but a lot of the themes you explore are to do with self-improvement and self-betterment.
Yeah.
Why do you choose to explore those themes instead of going down the more traditional route?
Simply because that's me. I'm someone who is honest and authentic to a T. I'm so honest and so authentic that people call me a liar and inauthentic because they're so not used to it, right? Like people get people get so used to lies that when they actually hear the truth or they see something authentic, it strikes them. It's almost like, oh wow, what's going on here? And it's quite ironic because in hip hop, people like to always say, keep it real, be yourself, be honest, keep it real. But it's so rare. It's so rare, like, especially in hip hop. I mean, people embellish and exaggerate and just totally make stuff up all of the time. I mean, if that weren't the truth, I mean, we'd all be dead by now, right? We'd
Yeah.
all be, yeah. I mean, how many people have, I'd love to see a tally of like rapper body counts in terms of like how many people they have killed
Yeah,
hypothetically in
according
their
to their
lyrics.
music. Yeah.
It would actually be fun to see which rapper has supposedly killed the most people through all of their songs in their career. And look, that's not reality. It's probably good it's not reality, right? Because I wouldn't want I wouldn't want to live in
I
a
would,
place
yeah,
where that's
glorified
actually happening.
criminal.
Yeah, sure. But with me, it's just an extension of myself. I figured, look, if I'm going to be a rapper as an artist, I'm just going to be me, And I even go by my name, right? Zuby is Zuby. Zuby's not my stage name. Zuby is me. It's what my parents call me. It's what my family calls me. So I'm not going to be a different person. I'm not going to be a totally different entity when I'm on the stage or when I'm in the studio. It's the same person. I write all my songs. Every word you hear is one of my thoughts. So I'm not going to suddenly become some super gangster who sells crack and is, grew up in the hood and whatever, when people know damn well that I'm a straight A student who went to Oxford and studied computer science and is very intelligent and comes from a stable family and a good background. That would be the fakest thing in the world. So from the beginning, I was just like, hey, look, this is me. If you don't like that this is me, that's okay. If you think it's too soft for you and, it's not gangster enough and it's not street enough, you've got plenty of that out there. I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not. And that was my formula from the very beginning. I never tried that. So all the way back from when I started to now, all the things you said, right? I've never used, profanity in any of my songs. The N-word is not in a single one of my songs. I don't.
I verified this as well, actually.
Yeah. Like I don't do it. And like I said, I don't use that language in real life. Yeah. I don't promote that stuff in real life. So it would be extremely dishonest and inauthentic for me to do that in my music. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. And what I find so weird is the fact that being authentic is your niche, which really it shouldn't be, because the nature of music should be an expression of yourself. I mean, it's music and art in general has just become so corrupted by an image that's trying to be put forth. But I want to talk a bit more about your legacy, because obviously you've been doing this for a long time, right? Even before sort of Twitter, everything blew up and we got to know you for things outside of that and other talents that you do have. What do you want your legacy in terms of your music to be?
I want my legacy in terms of my music and everything else to be about positivity, inspiration, perseverance, determination, authenticity, all of the things I stand for and I practice in my own life. I want to encourage other people to do the same. I'm a big believer in, I love the idea of potential, right? And I'm constantly striving to improve, to meet my potential mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, relationships, financially, business, everything I do. I want to in some way be constantly getting better. It's why I love the gym. It's why I like working out. It's not just about looking buff or having a six pack or being able to lift silly weights on camera.
I mean, that doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't hurt. It's all right. But but it's really about the self-improvement journey. I don't need to get any stronger. What the heck do I need to get any stronger for? But I know that I can, right? I haven't fully fulfilled my potential. So if I can deadlift 600 pounds, but I know I could probably hit like 630, then I'm going to push for 630, not because I figure I'm ever going to need that in my life, but because I want to be able to. So on every other level, that's just how I look at things. And then I inspire people. I know not everyone's as driven or as ambitious or motivated as I am, but as someone who is, I have the capacity to inspire other people in different ways. Some of that will be directly through the music, and everything used to be just about the music. And then over the past couple of years, I figured, let me give people more of me, right? So I'm interested in more things than just music. Music gives you one side of me or a couple sides, but there are other talents I have. There are other things I can do. There are other things that I can add to the world. That's why I wanted to write my fitness book. That's why I wanted to start my podcast. That's why I enjoy doing interviews like this, because whatever medium people receive the message through, I just want them to receive the message and to, yeah, and to, want to improve themselves and to improve the world and everything. I mean, on a sort of deeper level, it's a couple things. I mean, one, I feel like it's my moral duty.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a moral duty. In fact, the crazier the world becomes, or the more off the rails I feel like things are becoming, the more I feel compelled to speak on certain things or say certain. There's a lot of stuff I wish I never needed to say.
Yeah.
Every day on Twitter,
I can imagine
60% of my tweets I wish I did not have to write. Like this morning, I've got a tweet right now which is going viral, which basically it's phrased a bit more eloquently, but it basically says most black people, most white people, and most cops, and most people in general are not bad.
Yeah.
That's essentially what the tweet boils down to. Like most people are decent. And
the sky is blue. Like
yeah, I shouldn't have to say that. Exactly. No one should disagree. It should not be controversial or whatever. But I'm like, why do I need to say this? And the reason I need to say it is because I'm looking on my timeline and I'm looking at what is being put out there and I'm seeing what people are saying on TV. And I am hearing people saying, or at least some people directly, but I'm also hearing people alluding to the idea that, oh, you know what? Most white people are bad, actually, or most black people behave like this, or most cops are corrupt and are bad. And I'm just like, yeah, go ahead.
I've seen some stuff about like a list of things you could do as a black person if the media has become overwhelming in the last 3 days. I'm like, oh yeah, self-care for black people. I just thought, I had to get off Instagram because, funnily enough, I think I'm the only conservative I know.
Really?
Amongst my friends. Okay, no, not the ones that are like Kenyan or Ghanaian. Like amongst my friends that grew up here, yeah, I'm the only conservative, and I don't even understand how.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. Out of my close friendship group, I'm probably one of the most conservative, I guess. And I don't know. It's weird with me. And I grew up in different countries, and even these labels, they mean different things to me. They're all relative. So they're all quite relative as well. So as you know, I grew up in Saudi Arabia. My family background, originally from Nigeria, went to an American school for a while, obviously live in the UK, and I'm from the UK. And, my values don't differ from country to country, but in Saudi Arabia, I'd probably be considered a progressive.
Yeah.
In Nigeria, I'd probably be considered a liberal. In England,
US,
and then in England,
just right of center. But
yeah, and then in England, people call me, everything from a conservative to a full blown Nazi. So, which obviously I'm not the latter. But I'm what I believe is very simple. Yeah, and it's not some aspects of it might be a bit more complicated if you want to get into things like the ideal role of government in a society and, nitty gritty policy stuff. That's a bit more complicated. But on a very general level, I believe really basic stuff, right? Like be kind to one another, love your neighbor as yourself, be open-minded towards differing opinions and different types of people and different belief systems, etc. It's wrong to physically harm, let alone kill innocent people. The government the government shouldn't be involved in every single aspect of everything. Treat people equally, like truly equally, not this weird double, triple, quadruple standards that so-called progressives now like to call equal. It's like, no, actually equal, right? I'm talking to right now, of course, I know I'm talking to a black woman right now, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm just talking to Esther. I'm not in my brain. I'm not speaking to you differently as I would if I were being interviewed by a white guy who is 45 years old, right? And I shouldn't, right? And just applying the same rules to everybody. That's what I think. That's why, just simply believing that now gets one labeled a conservative, right? Because I don't support things like affirmative action. I don't support things like having different rules and standards depending on if you're a man or a woman or you're black. Isn't that isn't that a form of condescension and bigotry, right? If there's a standard and I'm like, oh, this is the standard, but actually you're a black woman, so we're going to make this a bit easier for you. I mean, that's what these people are essentially saying. And I'm just
just make an
no.
assumption. Yeah.
No,
I think that was one of the times I got
that.
in trouble. The bigotry of low expectations. I said that once, and I had this whole horde of, and bear in mind, I went to Bristol uni, so I was just completely ravaged by a lot of my leftist friends. They're like, how can you say that? And I was just like, are you serious? Like,
yeah, it's amazing.
How little do you think of me? Like, are we not in the same institution? Why would you think I need extra help? But yeah. Really I mean, you kind of got into politics based on a sort of unique set of circumstances, because I don't think you set out to be kind of a voice of reason on Twitter. I mean, you just put a video of you saying this is common sense, and everything blew up. So how have you, I suppose, taken that on the chin and really made that work for you? Because I'm not saying it's not a bad thing, but it's definitely been a blessing for us that's had an opportunity to see you in that way alongside your music.
Man, I wish I didn't have to do it, like I said. I really, there's so much stuff I'm like, I'd really rather be talking about and doing other things. But so it sort of started in 2018. So I have been the type of conversations and the kind of things I say on Twitter and the stuff I get into and the thoughts I put out there, those thoughts and ideas have been brewing since my teens, like all through my teens, all through my 20s. Anyone who knows me personally, whether family or friends, etc., I love deep conversations, right? I love trying to understand the world and talk about all different things, whether that is debating with my, good atheist friends about the origins of the world and morality and, is morality objective or subjective? And did the whole world just come here out of nothing and there's no God? Or they're questioning, why do I believe in God, right? They know I'm smart. I know they're smart. We're not there trying to disparage each other, or we're trying to understand each other's positions, which is why I think this is how I've somewhat become this voice of reason, because I've done all of this background work. I've been doing this for well over a decade, just not on a public forum. Yeah. So by the time it comes to me putting an idea out on Twitter, I'm not just 90% of the time, I'm not just saying something totally random that I've never thought of. I'm very much in a very short form summarizing a thought that I've been thinking about and debating and really trying to get my head around for a while. So that's kind of how it happens, and it also means that I can understand the different positions. So I have my own positions and beliefs and values and opinions, but any position that I hold strongly, I can if you didn't know what my position was, I could extremely convincingly make the opposite argument. Right? Like I could make a really good atheistic argument against religion and against God, against the idea that God exists, despite the fact that I'm a Christian and I believe in God. But because I've had for hours and hours and hours, like with very smart people, right? Other Oxford graduates, like smart people, professors, I've had these conversations. So I'm not interested in the dumbest argument against my positions. I want to know the best argument against anything I hold that I feel, okay, this is like a strong opinion I hold, or this is something I believe. I need to know, okay, no opinion or idea is bulletproof. What are the arguments against it? And it's very obvious to tell when people have not dealt with this, right? Because they'll say something, and this happens all the time with me, like both in real life and especially online, is people bring a knife to a gunfight. And and it's just like if you thought that pathetic argument was going to stand up, then no. But the reason people can do that is because most people surround themselves in echo chambers, and they never actually debate these ideas, and they never question their own beliefs. So they think that they can just say this one silly thing, and all of a sudden that's supposed to be like, ooh, boom, game over.
Boom, yeah, like no. Mic drop. And I'm just like, well, first of all, this is riddled with spelling mistakes. So that's not going to get you very far. But I think the point you're making is people don't really. I think if you haven't really explored the other side of your argument, you can't articulate it as well. And I think that's definitely a very valid point. I find people on Twitter would be like, I tend to ask a lot of questions on Twitter. I'm like, I don't understand this, or maybe I've got this wrong. So this is where I'm coming from. And you just have people saying you're dumb. I was like, I don't think so. I think there's more to this. You can explain it to me, and I would happily. Like I said, I've only blocked like 20 people on my Twitter because I'm not interested in existing in an echo chamber.
Oh yeah. Wait until you get to 100,000 followers and come back to me on that.
Yeah, I think it might be like 30.
I had blocked nobody until I got to about 50,000.
Yeah, I think
it became like after a while, it's not even an option. It's not even an option. Like you have to.
And I think for me, that doesn't really bother me. It's insofar as when it's younger people because I'm very passionate about sort of young people and people around my age, because I think from the time when you're like 17 to 25, that's a huge jump. And that's a jump that I feel like young people don't expect. So when I see young people just saying, you're dumb, you're this, and I'm like, there's so much potential. There's so much you're missing. You could either just ask me questions, we could go back and forth, you could read a book on political philosophy. There's so much you can do, but then you choose to not do it. And it really does disappoint me. I mean, how have you found like sort of young people and how they're interacting with politics these days? What have your observations been?
Mixed. This isn't unique to young people, but a lot of people don't really, there's that saying like people don't have ideas have people.
Yeah.
And that's largely true. I mean, if I talk to most people who are between that age range, you said, of course there are exceptions, but I can disturbingly predictably, if I know one of their opinions, I can normally quite accurately predict down to the words they're going to use, and it becomes. I've interacted with hundreds of thousands of people, if not more, if not millions by now. I've literally met hundreds of thousands of people too, through my music and everything. So, everyone's an individual, of course, but because most people don't think about certain ideas that deeply, a lot of people just kind of they just subscribe to one thing. Yeah. And for most young people, that'll lean towards left-leaning, liberalism / progressivism. Just go down the list on every issue, and they'll just kind of tick those boxes. And a lot of that is for social status as well. A lot of that is tribalism and wanting to fit in and wanting to feel like a good person, etc. So the reason why a lot of young people, this goes for both sides of the political spectrum, but especially young people who are left-leaning, which is 90% of them, if they even have any political ideas, people want to feel like good people.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of what people say and a lot of what people do is not based on thought or logic or rationale, etc. It's based on wanting to fit in and wanting to feel like a good person. Okay. Yeah. So if I come along from a fairly libertarian perspective and I start telling an 18-year-old about why raising the minimum wage is stupid, why it's a bad idea, right? Let me not say stupid. Let me say, I'm telling them that raising the minimum wage is a bad idea. Increasing welfare is a bad idea. Open borders is a bad idea. Lots of these things that on a surface level feel good, right? Because on a surface level, raising the minimum wage seems like an obviously good idea. On a very basic, superficial level. If you don't understand economics and you don't understand it from the business perspective and you don't understand supply and demand and how prices and wage, on a basic level, it seems like, yeah, of course, like just raise the minimum wage, right? It's the same in the USA, just ban the guns, just ban them, right? People are getting shot, there's school shootings, etc. What's the simple feel good answer? Get rid of the guns,
yeah,
right? But these things are much more complex. Yep. And this is why, I mean, this might be my own bias, but I don't think it is. This is why, especially when it comes to younger people, conservative-minded people they tend to, how would I put it? Like their arguments and resilience is just so much more because you are used to having to defend your ideas constantly. right? You're used to having to think about them and defend them, etc. Whereas a lot of liberals don't, right? They specifically will isolate themselves, in fact. So they'll just convince themselves that, you know what, you're evil. Conservatives are bad. If you vote conservative, you're bad. I don't want to talk.
Tory is now an insult.
Yes, exactly.
It's synonymous with being evil. Yeah.
Yes, I've had people try to end an argument with me or dismiss me by calling me a Tory.
Yeah.
And it they think that is the, like, they use that as if that ends the conversation, and you're just like, okay, dude, like, what's the firstly?
You can't say that because you get suspended again.
Yeah, exactly. Firstly, I'm not even a Tory, so it's funny.
That's the thing. People don't get it. You can have opinions and not particularly belong to a party. I mean, it's. I mean, I just want to get your opinion on this, because I find that when my favorite people to talk to are people that don't have the ego or the weight of, I have a degree from here, I was raised here. So when I go home, for instance, when I go to Ghana, like, I mean, I only moved here when I was 14. And when I did move here, I spent at least 2 to 3 months in Ghana. And my favorite people by far to speak to are taxi drivers, gardeners, people that are doing sort of agricultural work, bricklayers. And it's not because, you know, it's not for any particular reason, but it's just because there's so much a lack of ego. So I would like, there would be a gardener that can articulate a perfect left-leaning argument about sort of welfare and the economy, or the sort of the national health system that we have in Ghana, and I would get it, from his perspective, and it's so free of ego. And that's how I sort of sharpen my arguments, because I'm like, I get your point, but at the same time, it's like, you know, for instance, the person paying you is probably contributing the bulk of the funds for the National Health Service, right? And he would understand it from my perspective. I find that people that just come with a complete lack of ego are the funnest people to speak to, because they don't take themselves too seriously. You can have a joke. What's your experience been?
Yeah, no, I'm the same, and I'm always willing to change my mind.
Yeah.
But one thing that a lot of people, I think anyone who knows me personally knows this, but I'm not, like, if you want to change my mind, you need to come with facts. Like, you need to come with reason. You need to come with logic. Like, people try emotional arguments on me all the time, and it will never work, right? I'm not an emotionally charged person at all. I'm in the bottom 2% of the entire population in terms of the neuroticism personality trait.
Oh, I watched your Jordan Peterson.
Okay, yeah. So I'm
like as well, actually.
I'm like ultra low, to the point that some people question if I'm like a robot or something. And so, yeah, I do have emotions, of course, but if I'm giving a logical, reasoned position, or I've got facts, or I've got data, or I've got statistics, and someone is there telling me about their feelings, it's just like, I don't care, dude. Like, I'm not trying to be callous. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be cruel to anybody. But if you want to change my mind, you've got to bring something there. And I can understand, look, if I'm speaking to someone more emotional, I may need to frame my argument in a slightly more emotional way than what would convince me, just to hit on some of their triggers, right? I understand that. I'm used to communicating with people. But I'm always willing to, I always have a level of humility, because one, I understand that, like, I certainly think I know more than the average person, which might be cocky, but I think that's a fairly objective statement. Yeah. But I don't know most things. Right? I'm ignorant. I'm naive about most things in the world. I'm fairly knowledgeable about the things I talk about. That's why I talk about them. Yeah. But there are so many subjects. Most subjects I know nothing about, or I know very little. So I'm always willing to be open-minded. And there are things I've been really wrong about before, right? I've changed my position on some issues quickly once shown the other side, or shown, oh, okay, I was wrong there. In fact, a big one is this whole conversation that is going on in this moment. And something I have been talking about on Twitter today, funnily enough, which is the in the USA specifically, the whole situation of police shootings of civilians. Okay, yeah. So up until maybe 2016, 2017, I shared the idea. I shared the belief that the police in America were very specifically and uniquely targeting and killing black men, right? Because all of the evidence that I saw, all of the anecdotes I heard, everything I saw in the media, that's what I was seeing, right? Every time I'd see another police shooting happens in the U.S., always a black guy, every single time, occasionally a black woman. And then I looked into this properly, and the statistics, more white people are shot and killed by the police than black people in America. This is a fact.
Which is statistically how it really should be, given the demographics.
Given the demographics, sure, but just that fact alone does not fit what people think.
Yeah.
Right? Just that fact. I mean, most people can name multiple black men in America who have been shot and killed by police, sometimes totally unjustified, sometimes more justified. Like we know people's names, right? People know the names. People know, of course, now George Floyd. People know Michael Brown. People know Eric Garner. This one wasn't police, but everyone knows, Trayvon Martin. People know all these names. Yeah. And then it's like, wow, there's more white people are shot and I don't know any of their names.
Yeah. I couldn't name 10 people.
Okay. I'm like, I don't know that. So I did more research and I looked into some of the circumstances. I saw the Daniel Shaver shooting, which was one of the most egregious ones out there. I saw, there's another one. What's the guy who got very similar to this George Floyd one, Tony Timpa, who was also choked by the police over the course of a long period.
There was a homeless man in California as well.
Yeah, there have been lots of them. Yeah. There have been lots of them. Justine Damon. This was also a white woman who was shot after she called the police. So I realized, whoa, okay, this is not the framing of this whole situation that most people believe is, and which I was believing, is actually wrong, right? It's not that no, cops do not ever shoot black men. Of course not. That's not the point. But the idea that it's only them or mainly them, and that this is purely an issue of race and racism rather than an issue of police violence in general or police brutality in general or corruption in the police force, etc. That's a different thing. And I realized I was wrong on that. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, I need to change my position on this.
But you can't even say it. You can't say that. You can't go on your Instagram and state the facts that you just have, that you have researched, that are backed up by fact. You cannot say that.
It's too late.
Like suicide.
Too late. I've just done it. I did it like 2 hours before this conversation.
Oh my God.
So yeah, things like that. Or, I used to be sort of pro-choice by default.
Yeah.
Right? Not because I ever really liked the idea of abortion, but just because I never really thought about it and I just assumed that the majority opinion and the law was correct. Yeah. Right? I've thought, okay, other people have worked this out, so I'm not going to put in any legwork. And then I did my own research. I looked into the biology of gestation. I looked into the process. I actually watched the process. I thought about this properly in terms of my moral and my ethical framework. And I came out the other end pro-life because I was like, I cannot reconcile this with my own morality and belief system, right? I believe that it's wrong to kill innocent human beings intentionally, period.
Yeah.
So either, if someone is pro-choice, either they have to deny that this is a human being that's being killed, or you have to accept that it is, and you then have to accept that, sometimes it is okay to intentionally and purposely kill an innocent, defenseless human being. Right? If someone is so-called pro-choice, if someone supports abortion, right, you have to hold one of those positions. And neither, I'm not comfortable with either of those. Right? I'm not comfortable with either of those because number one is just intellectually dishonest. Right? People like to call people science deniers, but you can't deny science more than saying an unborn child is not a human being. I mean, we know that's the case. Like we understand how this stuff works. We all know how we got here, right? We know how we started. If anyone has seen a baby being born, everyone's seen a woman be pregnant, and then
how it has a chair or a chicken.
Yes, exactly, right? Until a woman gives birth to a frog or a donkey or something, we know that we know it's a human being. So, people like to do this double think thing. There's just so much cognitive dissonance. And if that hits me, it's like, yo, I need to change my position. So that's how I became pro-life. That's because it was like, wow, I cannot reconcile this, right? The best arguments I hear for the position, again, they might fit in some people's moral and ethical framework, but they don't comfortably fit in my own. And there are other issues. I would say that those are two of kind of like the big ones that I have very humbly been like, okay, I was wrong. This is now my position. And yeah, and it also means that I can understand the other ones better, because it's like, okay, I've been there before. So if I'm talking to someone who does believe that the police are just out there hunting down black men and that this only happens to black people and it's purely a Black Lives Matter, et cetera, someone's just fully gone for that hook, line, and sinker, then I can understand that, because I've been in that position before. So I can show them, hey, have you heard of this case? Hey, what do you think of this case? Oh, watch this video. What do you think of this? How come the police got off on this one? What about that? Oh, look at these statistics. This doesn't really make sense based on what you're saying, right? If the police are only doing this to black people, how is it even possible that white people, it's happening to them more, right? You could say it's disproportionate, et cetera, and there's more reasons to that. But the simple facts, just if you're willing to just accept that, if you're an honest person, you then have to go and question what you were saying before. And I'm willing to do this I try to be very intellectually honest, and I'm willing to do this on any issue, because I'm sure in 10 years' time from now, there's some things that I believe now or that I feel strongly about now, which in 10 years I'll probably look back on and be like, yeah, okay, I was wrong on that one. So yeah, I think that degree of humility is important.
I mean, I think one thing that, with a lot of what you've mentioned, one thing that kind of prevents people from even analyzing their own stances on their issues, as you did, is this celebrity culture. I feel like once it's resonated past a certain point, most people don't even bother kind of doing the research, because they assume Joaquin Phoenix or Rihanna said it, so they must be right. I've been very, very vocal and very critical of celebrities in general, to the point where I think I might teeter into condescension, but I'm not sorry. What do you think? What do you make of celebrity culture now? I mean, we can effectively call you a celebrity, but I'm not sure if you rub shoulders with the kind of people that would only ask for vegan meals at award ceremonies and tell you to like not drive your car while they sit on their £300 million yacht. But what do you make of celebrity culture now, especially now that you have been to sort of mainstream outlets in the US, and you've been interviewed by Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro and all the likes of them?
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I mean, it's not new. I think that's the first thing is, celebrities have always existed in some degree. You could go back to any period in history and you would have famous people. Yeah. I think what's weird now is that you can be a celebrity without being famous for something specifically. So I think I differentiate between famous and celebrity. Okay. Firstly. So to me, famous normally suggests that you have actually done something and achieved something, in which case, you are known for something, you're famous in that regard. Whereas I think celebrity is more someone who specifically, either through their choice or just by the media's interest, someone who courts a lot of media attention, right? Like Lady Gaga was like the prime celebrity for a while. Paris Hilton was a celebrity. You can certainly be famous and be a celebrity, but you can be famous and not be a celebrity as well, right? There are lots of people who are famous, but you wouldn't really consider them a celebrity because the media is not following. You're not seeing them in these magazines, and you don't hear about them in gossip columns and on TV. Like they just do their thing.
They're not part of tabloid culture, but they'll probably be like sort of academics and people that are renowned in a certain field.
Yeah, they could even be they could even be sports players. They could even be musicians, etc. But they don't court that level of attention and just weird, I don't know, if the paparazzis are following you around and wanting to know about reporting when you lose 5 pounds or gain 5 pounds, etc., then you're definitely a celebrity. And there are people like that who are not really famous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they may have been on Love Island or Big Brother, or like they haven't done anything.
Yeah, they haven't
So
done
they're
anything.
celebrities, but like they're not really famous to me. Does that make sense? So I think it's kind of weird. I'm very much from my personal stance. Like I've met a lot of famous people, and I'm a real equalist. Like I treat everybody this. Okay, I don't want to say I treat everybody the same because that's not really true, but I just treat everybody like a human being who is a human being. Like I don't get weird. I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't think there's any, like I've met some people who I massively respect and who are extremely well known, etc. And there's no one who I've never been starstruck.
Really?
No, I've never been starstruck. You know, I've met like famous people. I've met, you know, of course, all the people you've named, all the people's podcasts I've been on, you know, of course, you know, Joe Rogan, etc. I've met in the world of music, I've met most well-known British rappers I've certainly met. So I've met, you know, Stormzy and Skepta and JME and Wretch32 and Getz and Devlin. You know, I've met lots of these people. Or in the USA, I've met my favorite rapper, Tech Nine. You know, I've met a lot of, you know, some hip hop legends and stuff like that. KRS-One, and it's dope. It's dope. I've met Chris Rock before, right? Like I've met a lot of people.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I've met a lot of people, and it's you know, sometimes you get that thing like, oh crap, like that's Chris Rock, you know?
Yeah, I have that.
You know what
yeah.
I mean? But not like, oh my gosh, like you know.
Oh no,
like,
that okay, that wouldn't be me. I met like a Premier League footballer in like North London, and I just hid because he was so fine. I didn't really freak out. I just hid, and my brother was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "No, he's too good looking."
Oh, on that note, I've met Rio Ferdinand.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I met Rio Ferdinand. That was funny. That was actually funny because I was seeing people like behaving like in a ridiculous manner.
Yeah, I would just hide. I'd save myself for shame. No, I'm serious. I can't embarrass myself like that. I wouldn't let myself.
Yeah. So you know, I think, and I don't know. What do I say about celebrity culture? I just think it's just a strange phenomenon.
I mean, at the moment, celebrities are being targeted on social media if they haven't posted about the whole George Floyd situation.
Oh yeah.
It's like there's a witch hunt. And I don't even know if that's like poetic justice or I don't even know what to call it.
Yeah, and that stuff like that is silly. You know, social media is just kind of, I love it and it's a big part of my life and my business, but it's weird. You know, with all these things, I think you've just got to, you just have to moderate and you have to be self-aware and you have to make sure that you use the tools rather than letting the tools use you, right? Because all of them are addictive. They're designed to be addictive. Right, I would be lying if I said I don't have a moderate addiction to Twitter because I definitely do. The other platforms, not so much, right? I could easily not use them, but yeah, it's a real thing. But you have to be very cognizant of it and aware of it, and try to use it as best as you can in a positive way, because all of them can be very destructive, all in their own way too, right? I think like the sort of the way Instagram can be destructive is quite different to the way that Twitter can be destructive.
Yeah, Twitter can be destructive with words. Instagram can be destructive with like nappy bums.
Yeah, or you know, just like people's self-image and stuff like that, right? So I think Instagram is a lot more. If I had a teenage daughter, I would probably be more worried about Instagram than Twitter.
But yeah, definitely.
If I had a son, maybe I'd be more worried about Twitter than Instagram.
I think I'd be worried about both.
But yeah, but it's just like they have different effects on people's psyche, and the sort of threats as well as the benefits are quite different.
Okay, so obviously here at Turning Point, we are very passionate about showing young people a different side of politics. That's definitely been a mission that I've been on. Personally, going to a very leftist university and just growing up in the shadow of what I should have been technically, but I'm completely not. What advice would you give to young people these days?
Wow. On any particular level or just generally?
I think just on a level of how they should interact with, I guess, politics and the kind of principles they should live by in general.
Gotcha. Be honest. Tell the truth. Honestly, please, everybody just stop lying. I'm so sick of people just lying and being disingenuous and being inauthentic. Sometimes I feel like I've just been being gaslit for the past 5 years because nobody wants to tell the truth. So tell the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. Don't be afraid or ashamed of your beliefs. Be willing to be open-minded, embrace free speech, embrace challenge, embrace debate, discussion, etc. And be, tolerance isn't just being tolerant of the people who you already agree with. That's not tolerance. To you to be tolerant, you have to be able to get on with and be civil with people whom you disagree with, sometimes very, very strongly. And you can always learn because, one, you're probably wrong on some things. And two, I know this is really hard to believe, but most people do have good intentions. Not everybody, but most people do have good intentions. So even if someone is a raging socialist and you are like a libertarian, neither of you hold those positions because you want society to be terrible and you want everybody to die, right? Yeah. And it's very easy to frame the other person's opinion like that. It's not hard to do, but that's not the truth. Most people sort of want to get to the same endpoint. Most people want society and humanity to be better, but there's a big range of philosophies and ideas on what people think is conducive to that and what people may think is harmful towards that.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for coming, Zuby. It's been a pleasure having you.
You're welcome, Esther.
Thank you.